Hi, I'm back. I'm gonna paint more. Shocking everyone, I think. Blowing minds. Got my sweater on, which seems risky, so I'm gonna roll the sleeves up. Back into the gouache. So I've used a different app. I'm hoping it's a little higher resolution, among other things. We're gonna find out. And yeah. I've cracked open the chat. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. We'll see. I don't know. Anyways, hi. It's time to darken some of these colors. So you can see my palette's a hot mess. Got my spray bottle, though. Should fill that up again soon. And let's see. So this color is definitely some burnt sienna. If we mix that with the blue, I'm going to darken that a little bit, but I don't want it to be super opaque. Hold this up where you could see it, maybe. That's work. Work I don't have the energy to do. Making this mint color again for this zone. Laying in a whole lot of river back there. A little bit of mint in here too. Like this. You know what? I'm gonna need light on this. It's my bad, but there's just no way. Let's get some light going. All right. That's a start. What next? It's probably good to work backwards to forwards. So. So you notice I haven't gotten any white out yet. I don't want any white in this yet. That's like a late stage edition. Not a late stage, mid stage edition. I want to get it as dark as it's going to be first. I think that's a pretty reasonable approach. Okay, I'm mixing up that olivey green. This is a lighter version of it. Here is a darker version of it, slightly more opaque. Otherwise pretty similar though. Finding the consistency sweet spot in this otherwise very dry house. It's not easy. I do think we're starting to see that depth though. This isn't futile. Also, I apologize, the sun is actively setting as we hang out, so the colors are going to just shift on my screen, and I don't know what to do about that. I guess you don't want to stream at sunset. Lesson learned, I guess. I'm going to continue to probably stream at sunset now and then. It is my way. And we have this, and I want that to be quite dark, so I'm actually going to pull in a little bit of my Windsor green. Absolutely delightful color. Mix it into this otherwise kind of dull green I've been using. I can do a little bit here with that because this is the nearest tree. And then start to lay in this tree that sort of leans over the whole thing. Actually makes like a very nice warm green with the burnt umber, burnt sienna, and this. Trying to decide if putting some more tree stuff here would be helpful. The good news is I can add it later because it's gouache, so I'm not going to push for it. But it's an option. The future me will keep track of. Oops. So I bought tassels in bulk for the scroll maps and the fold-out map zines I've been making, and they're just kind of roaming my studio right now. I thought I had them all put away, and I keep finding them. They're pretty cute, and we kind of went with a little one to start. I wasn't sure if tassels were going to be my thing, but I don't mind them. Anyways, not today's point. I'm talking while I mull. Unfortunately, painting involves a lot of mulling. It turns out, is this good TV? I don't know. I am recording these as well, so I'll make some time lapses. Those are always fun. Okay. It's time to make some more brown. So I'm going to just mist. This palette is really pretty good, but I have a couple of pigments that just very badly want to dry out, more than the other ones, for reasons unknown. Shout out to Burnt Umber as the star of that show. But first order of business, let's get more of that. Primary red. Mix it in here. Get some nice pink rock bits. I've been watching Sarah Burns paint in gouache, and you know, her landscapes are just, they're dreamy. They're dreamy. That's all there is to it. I would love to see them in person. I bet there's so much more to enjoy than you can capture in a picture. And watching her paint, like, it's so, I mean, she's so thorough with sharing everything on the YouTubes. And then at the same time, like, really painting as if she's not filming. I don't know how much she feels that, but from my end, that's what it looks like. And it's really impressive, and it means that I get to, like, almost, I feel like I'm sort of seeing her process just by watching her put paint on the page. You know? Is that true? I don't know. It's how it feels from over here, which I think is pretty neat. So she does these amazing, just sort of like swoopy landscape things like this, kind of. Really using the brush strokes. That sounds good. I will have to learn my brushes. That's one where you really got to know the tools that you're working with, right? How should I make these recede? Probably with blue. We're really going in for atmospheric perspective here, friends. I was saying this on my previous stream, but I do really feel like gouache doesn't come together till it comes together. Like it's very much not a couch until finally, suddenly it's a couch. And only then. Which is a little punishing, I'm not gonna lie. But also really cool. It does make it feel like magic. Once you have faith that it will happen. Until then, it feels terrible. Not terrible, but it's intense. I'm loving these pink rocks. This was a good call. Me. You notice I've just completely painted over all the fish in the water. They are just going to have to come back when it is their time, and not a minute earlier, because I'm not ready. Getting a lot of use of the burnt sienna. So I made this palette by sort of taking a look at the paints I had and what I had in tube form and how much I had in tube form. Because this is my sort of stay wet palette. And these things, you could probably squeeze half of a tube of gouache into any of these. So I didn't want to use ones where I was just about to finish the gouache if I could help it. Unfortunately, I did use a couple like that, specifically that teal right in the middle there. But, so it goes. So it was a little bit of a palette of convenience. There are some things that I consider important in a palette, such as 3 different blues, a green, an orange, and a purple. I think there are convenience colors that are not useful in a mixing palette. They're useful on their own. But then there's convenient colors that are useful in a mixing palette. And I gotta say, the Windsor green, or if you have a Viridian or even a phthalo green, the mixes you can get with that, because it's usually a single pigment color, it's really powerful. It can do a lot. And it can make some wonderful mixes that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get unless you had those tubes as convenience colors. So wonderful mauves and maroons when you mix it with sort of an alizarin crimson or such. Thinking about the shape of this rock. So I find that those are useful, and I'm trying out this Orange Lake light. So I made this mixing chart, which I'm sure you all find thrilling. But like, this is the Orange Lake light. These are mixes I can get with it, and some of them are pretty lovely. So these are all tilted towards this thing, but if we go down here, we'll see the ones that are tilted towards Orange Lake light. I mean, that's like a denim. I love it, right? You get some really fun, sort of calming greens, like neutral greens. It did not defend itself well against teal. I will have to probably remix that. And you just get a lot of really nice warm colors when you get in with the yellows and the reds that punch up a palette that otherwise doesn't have a warm red in it, right? I have a alizarin crimson, which is fairly cool, and a primary red, which is magenta, pretty much. So I really rely on my yellows, oranges, and earth tones to bring that warmth to the palette. And the Orange Lake Light really gives me a range, right? With Alizarin Crimson, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with the red I get. The primary red does all right with it, but I think the crimson is really where it's at. Anyways, I like these as mixing colors. And then I have my Spectrum Violet, which is just so powerful. Even with the yellows, you're getting things. You're getting greens in some cases, and when you get into really warm, neutral yellows, you get these gorgeous, gorgeous grays. Sorry, I'm going to keep pulling this out as I paint, because I literally keep it beside myself for this exact purpose. And I'm happy to share it because it's something to help me talk about what I'm doing. Anyways, let the paint dry on my brush. So yeah, I like having a couple of these sort of secondary colors in the palette. And I've got an ultramarine blue, I've got a phthalo blue, I've got this blue teal blue. They're really lovely. And picking one of them as a foundation stone of a palette, which is what I've done with this, it's going to be teal blue all the way, baby. Like, that gets you quite a distance to feeling unified. I don't know why it's the blues that do this for me. And I can use all three blues in a palette if I pick something else to sort of hinge it on, but this is good. So yeah, so far the palette is the blue teal, burnt sienna, primary red, Naples yellow. Do I have anything else in here? Windsor green. So we're at a 5 pigment palette so far. We're obviously adding white, probably also black. And I'm going to see if I need a yellow. I don't know if I'm gonna, but you want to be ready. I do have 3 yellows as well. And like I said, I only have the 2 reds, so I'm cheating a bit, but that also tells you a bit about my priorities as a painter. But also my priorities as someone who bought a bunch of tubes of paint, which is not red. Just not a lot of red in those priorities. So I'm going to shift these distant stones just a little bit into the grays in a purple direction, ideally. So we'll see how this works. Well, everything got really dark first off. That's neat. Mixing is such a trip. So you can see my brush a little bit here. I'll just make myself some more interesting rock shapes. And get some purples up in here. Actual real purple. Well, okay, it's still mauve, but you trust me. Well, the value thing still has to be sorted, but this is not a stage at which I'm going to fix values perfectly because I'm not using any white. And as you can see, nothing's even gotten that dark yet because I haven't broken out the black either. I like in watercolor to avoid using black, but in gouache that's a lot harder. And you can sort of see the reason just in the paints right out of the tube, right? These are all very light. We're starting to get a little darker. We've got a nice dark burnt umber, but it's not nearly as dark as black. And I think, honestly, the Alizarin Crimson is as or more dark. The Spectrum Violet, probably same level as the Crimson. The Ultramarine, really not that dark at all. Probably about the same value as the Windsor Green. So if I want dark values, I've got to play with the jet black that I've got here. And I picked a cold black, which I know is not standard, but it's where I'm at. Oh, hey, Evelyn. Thanks for saying hi. Trying to figure out this painting. Talking about gouache at length. So yeah, I'm just struggling with values at this stage because I'm really not pushing them, but that's fine. I'm planning kind of as I put stuff down. Gouache doesn't really need you to make big decisions right away. That's part of why I like it. I can make huge decisions. I can get into a much bigger brush. Actually, you want to see I have some huge oil painting brushes left over from school. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. It's not, I have to wash these with like some really good soap that's going to like strip them down to nothing, but once I do, they should be pretty fun on bigger pieces with gouache. This is not the only big one I have. I also have some acrylic brushes that I use, including this goat hair one, which you can see is pretty well loved. And again, I'm going to do a little bit of brush cleaner work on it because it's got a little gunk in the ferrule, essentially. But again, it's a wonderful potential wash brush, both for gouache and for watercolor. So yeah, I did big paintings in undergrad. For some reason, because we had to, and other times because we were given the option and it looked fun. And student discounts are a real good thing at an art supply store. It's definitely hard to sort of think and talk at the same time. And this is a very thinky stage of the painting. It's probably time to move down to a smaller brush. I don't know if it was James Gurney. It was probably James Gurney. He's very, very wise. And I've read a lot of his stuff and also watched a lot of his videos and interviews. So let's assume it was James Gurney who said that you should work with the biggest brush you can get away with. And that has really helped me get out of my own bad habits. I don't know if it's right for everybody. I know a lot of people who don't do this at all. They're painting huge paintings with, you know, brushes like this or smaller. Oh God help me. I sometimes see people in there with like this and they're just trying to fill in an area as if it's a pencil crayon. If you don't want that texture, there's ways to avoid it. If you do want that texture, that's exactly how you get it. I don't want that texture. And pursuit of that texture really was a trap for me for a while. So getting bigger brushes has really helped. I would love one. This is a 1 inch, 3/4 inch. And I do have a 1 inch kicking around. So these are my big flats. This is a 1 and a bit, or just a 1. This is also a 1. You can see how one of the 1 inches looks bigger than the other. That's art for you. Yeah, that one's like a quarter bigger. So I keep these around. None of these are expensive brands. Handover, I bought, I think, from Jacksons.com for very cheap. Because I was already ordering something, and at that point, get a couple discounted things. This is a Cotman brand, Winsor Newton brush. So Cotman is their student line. These are really great as like a starter watercolor gouache brush. They hit that sort of sweet spot between firmness and being able to hold a lot of water, and they're synthetics, they're not expensive. This is the Curry's brand. Sorry, I have fixed focus. And, oh, hello! Hi, Jillian. Thanks for saying hi. This is a really old brush as well, probably from 2004 or so, maybe earlier. So it's not degraded too much. It's about the same sort of softness as the Cotman. These Handover are a little bit stiffer, but not by much. I like a stiffer brush with gouache. I have some that are very, very stiff. This is a really fun one. It's a Masters series. They have these at Gortzman's, I think. And I actually have used these quite a bit. They're just white synthetic brushes. This is a Gortzman's brand one specifically. But you can see it's the same markings. And they put up with a lot of my shit. I could switch to this, actually. I'd kind of expected to go right down to the 3/8, but I've got a 1/2 inch here with an angle, and angles are powerful. You can get away with a lot. Anyways, I am just kind of nattering on, but if anybody has questions, fun, exciting gouache questions, like what the hell am I painting? These are reasonable questions to ask at this stage. So this is water, these are rocks, trees, 2 people, and there will be sparkly fish dragons in the water at some point. I've decided to let the water get really dark and then paint the dragons only on their sparkly bits so that they feel like they're sparkling through murky water. Don't know if that's going to work. Just gonna try it. You know how it is. So I've put slow mode on just because I don't think I'm super good at following the chat, but okay. It's probably time to commit to painting at least a little bit of these people. I mean, you see how this is like splitting? I gotta get in here with the brush cleaner. There's just gunk in the ferrule that's making the bristles not sit flat. So the first thing I'll do is just use laundry soap. And if that doesn't get it out, you can kind of see the gunk. Not in the blur, but it's like a different shade there. If the laundry soap doesn't get it out, I actually have some pretty chemically intense brush cleaner that I will be using for this. Where did I put it? I don't know. We'll find it later. But you can see it's going to be a neat brush for making smushy shapes instead of clean ones. So we'll just focus on that to start. So I'm going to mix a little bit more of this lilac periwinkle that I have been using on the figures in a couple of spots and just lay that in. A little bit more opaquely. You can see I'm getting a lot of lines because it's splitting like that, which I guess is why I didn't have it on the table, but that's okay. On some level, right, this is a stage where like I'm not expecting to see a lot of these marks clearly by the time the painting is done. So if they happen to be a little ugly or just out of control, which is really I think just what's happening, I don't have control over the texture of this brush, it's kind of doing its own thing. That's kind of okay. It's not the end of the world at all because in the end they're going to be adding interest, which is pretty neat. That said, this is frustrating and I'm going to stop using this brush, which is too bad. Now I know I got to clean it. I feel like doing a big brush wash is something that, like, especially using watercolor, it doesn't feel like you have to do it very much. But with gouache, and especially with brushes that have been used for anything else, it's never a bad idea. So I'll probably end up doing a pretty thorough brush wash in the next week or two, honestly. It's probably due. Right, this used to be a bright orange brush. They do get stained kind of without, like, no matter what you do. Because especially phthalo pigments are very staining. Alright, RIP brush. Deal with you later. Alright, back to plan A, which was this one. So I love these flat brushes with gouache, and I find myself using them a lot more with gouache than I do with watercolor because of these crisp edges and shapes they can make with the paint. I find that getting a round brush into using gouache is a different sort of shenanigan than doing it with watercolor. Okay, let's mix up a darker color entirely for the fur. And a couple of these. swatch sheet out. Yeah. Let's see. And with gouaches, you can kind of move it while it's wet. Not a ton, but a little bit. I'm debating giving this person white fur on their hat because it'll contrast more. We'll see. You can paint white over things in gouache. It's very nice that way. Alright, let's make some value judgments in terms of light and shadow. I like the misty light behind them. And I don't want this to be like too bright, but I do like the idea that maybe there's some dappled light coming in. Kind of changes the tone though. I feel like this right now, this color scheme has a bit of a like rainy day, just after the rain, fog everywhere sort of vibe. And putting some bright sunlight probably wouldn't be my jam. Let's see. Well, I know we're going to have some dark colors in underneath where people are touching the ground that they are standing on. So that does simplify that a little bit. Get that in. So I'm just thinking about occlusion shadows and putting shadows between stones where they touch one another to start, because that's probably priority one. Switch to a bluer shadow color so we get into those stones in the back. You can probably lay some of that blue shadow in on the sides here just to tie it all in. Let's see. Coming up to the end of my determined painting time, so what's a spot that I can leave this that I'll know what to do with it when I come back, which is like the real trick to painting is to like leave something simple on the plate for the morning or later tonight or whenever I come back to this, you know? Going even bluer. the other trick I have up my sleeve that is maybe important to share is that I have no intention of taking this to an incredibly rendered paint alone experience. My plan is to get this to a stage where I feel like the gouache is saying everything the gouache can say, and then I'm going to use these pencil crayons that you can see along here, or possibly even this ballpoint pen from Muji to add, what would I call it, decisions about form and where things are important and how to, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. That's my secret. I'm trying really hard to not rely on the paint alone because I don't need to, and it doesn't work when I do, and it looks very nice when I let other things come in and be part of it. So, trying to remember that. Easier said than done, of course, but that's everything. Okay, so now I want to lay in like an actual brown. Some good shoes. This is probably all the painting of my figures I can do without getting the ref out again. Which is probably a sign that it's time to take a break. And also this is my standing desk, so my feet are tired. I would like to not have tired feet. So I'm gonna go call it on this one. And that ought to do me. So thank you so much if you joined in. It was so nice to see some friends in the comments. And I will